Hi guys, here is an additional review for the Unit 3 test per the request of my students. I'm going to do a little bit of work with writing our equations in different forms, and then on the back side we'll do a little work with some word problems. Okay, so starting off we're going to work with standard form. So remember, standard form, you always have to start with some other form like slope, intercept, or point slope, and then use your algebra to get to standard form. Okay, so for this first equation, well, I see I have a y-intercept of 4, and I also can find my slope. Let's find 2 points on this line. Let's see, I can definitely see this point right here and this point right here. If I count rise over run, I'll find my slope. So my rise is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And my run is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So it looks to me like this slope is 7 over 4. So if I want to write this in my slope-intercept form, since those are the two things I have, I would write y equals 7 over 4x plus 4. Now remember, I have to start with this to get it to standard form. So let's do some algebra now to get to standard form. The first thing I would do is subtract 7/4 x from both sides of the equation, because I know I want my x and y both on the left side. So now I'll have negative 7 over 4x plus y equals 4. But now I want the number or the coefficient in front of x to not be a fraction and to be positive. So I'm going to multiply this entire equation by negative 4. Let's see what happens if I do that. So I'm going to multiply this fraction by negative 4. All that's left is 7x. If I multiply y by negative 4, that gives me negative 4y. And if I multiply 4 by negative 4, that gives me negative 16. Now you have an equation that's in standard form. Okay, next one. Now there's no graph. We're just starting with slope-intercept. So same thing as before. We need to get our x term to the left side of the equation, and I don't want any coefficients that are fractions like this 5/3. So I'm going to show you another way to do it. This time I'm going to multiply everything by 3 first. So I'm going to multiply y by 3, that gives me 3y. I'm going to multiply 5x by 3, so that's just going to give me 5x, the 3 and the 3 cancel, and 6 times 3 is going to give me 18. Now I'm almost in standard form. What I'm going to do now is subtract 5x from both sides of the equation. So I have negative 5x plus 3y equals 18. And then remember, last step, if we want to make this true standard form, we don't want this negative, so we're going to multiply everything by negative 1. So I've got positive 5x minus 3y equals negative 18. And you're in standard form now. Okay, next few problems are now asking for slope-intercept, but we're starting with some other form. So this one, if you can see, this is starting in standard form. Now, if you ever want slope-intercept, that's just our y equals mx plus b. In other words, solve for y. So I'm going to subtract 7x. We're almost doing the opposite as number 1 and 2. 4y equals negative 7x plus 20. And then remember, I'm solving for y. This is 4 times y. So we need to do the opposite. You want to divide by 4. Okay, so I've got y equals negative 7 over 4x plus, what's 20 divided by 4? That's 5. This is slope-intercept form. Okay, next one, we're going to start with point slope. I see, first off, I have some parentheses and a number out front. I'm going to distribute that first so I don't have those parentheses anymore. So I'm going to write my left side of the equation, and then I'm going to distribute this 3/2. So I've got 3/2 x plus, over here I'm going to show you 3/2 times 4. So 3 over 2 times 4 over 1, that's 12 over 2, and guess what that is? That's just 6. So down here, when I did 3/2 times 4, That just gives you 6. Okay, then the last step. Now I've got my x on the right side of the equation. That's what I want. But again, we're solving for y. This is y plus 2, so I need to subtract 2. So y equals 3/2 x, and then 6 minus 2 is plus 4. Now you are in y equals mx plus b. Okay, and then last problems on this side, we're going to write now point slope. So remember, for point slope, you need a point and the slope. Now I've got 2 points to work with here, so I'm good on that, but I do need the slope. So remember, if you've been given 2 points, find the slope. So that's y2 minus y1, so 1 minus -1 over 5 minus 0. Now careful here, if you subtract a negative, you're really adding. So this is 1 plus 1, that's 2. And then 5 minus nothing is just 5. So our slope, or m, is 2/5. Now we're ready to write in point slope. Now I'm going to choose the point without a 0, just because I like to have numbers for both my x and y values, but you could pick either of these points. So I'm going to go ahead and start writing point slope. Y minus the y values, that's 1, equals slope, 2/5, times x minus the x value. Just like that. And that's it, you're done. Okay, very similar. We have 2 points again, so we're just going to find our slope once more. So that's going to be 5 minus 2 all over 5 minus -3. So that's really 5 plus 3. So 5 subtract 2 gives you 3. 5 plus 3 gives you 8. So our slope here is 3/8. Okay, again, you can pick either of these points. Let's pick this point this time. So I'm going to start writing my equation. Y minus 2 equals, and then I've got my slope, 3/8. And then we're going to write x minus the x value in the parentheses. But careful here, this is x subtract -3. So it's really going to be x plus 3, just like that. And that's your point slope form. Okay, now onto the back side. Let's see what this problem is about, and then we'll write an equation, and we will answer the question. It's a little out of frame here, but hopefully you have the paper with you. It says, oops, that's not the one I want, this one right here. Lily has 2 cats. She gets 2 more cats every year. So she's starting with 2, that's our initial value, and she's getting 2 per year. So right off the bat, this initial value right here, initial, that's 2. We can also think of that as our y-intercept. That's our b value, that's our starting point. And then 2 every year, that's a rate, that's 2 per year. So our rate, 2 per year, that's our slope. Okay, so I've been given a y-intercept and a slope. Hey, guess what? I'm probably going to write my equation in slope-intercept form. So that means I would write y equals 2x, because that's my slope, plus 2. That's my y-intercept, or my b value. Okay, so we've already got our equation. Now we're going to answer the question. It says, how many cats will she have after 10 years? Well, y is how many cats she has, and x is the years. So what we're going to do is we're going to solve this equation when x is 10. So 2 times 10 plus 2. Well, 2 times 10 is 20, and then add 2. So she will have 22 cats after 10 years. All right, let's read the next problem. Rio Americano is selling dance tickets for $12 and flowers for $5. If the school wants to make $1,200, it's a lot of money. Write an equation that represents how many tickets and how many flowers they need to sell. And if they sell 50, how many flowers do they need to sell? So kind of 2 things here. Let's write our equation first. Now you'll notice we're trying to make a certain amount of money, so I want to reach $1,200. And I have 2 things selling for different amounts. So this is probably going to be in standard form. So this is going to be 12x. X is going to be the number of dance tickets, plus 5y. Y is going to be the number of flowers they sell. So this is my equation right here in standard form. Then let's answer the question. If they sell 50 tickets, how many flowers do they need to sell? Well, there's two ways you can do this. Either you can graph this. So on our graph, our x-axis is number of tickets. Our y-axis is number of flowers. And then on here, and I'm just going to eyeball this, we would graph our y-intercepts and our x-intercept. So remember, to find our y-intercept, you make x 0, solve for y. So you would do 1200 divide by 5. That's going to give you 240. So on our y-axis, we're going to be all the way up somewhere at 240. Okay, and then if we want to find our x-intercept, you're going to make y 0, solve for x. So if you do 1200 divide by 12, that will give you 100. So that's going to be somewhere like right here. And remember, I'm just eyeballing these amounts. Okay, so then remember, we can connect these with our line. Remember, this is an equation of a line. And we want to know if we sold 50 tickets. So if I went over 50, how far would I go up? What would the y value be? So it'd be somewhere right here. Now, if I had a nice graph, I could find what point that would be over here. But instead, I'm going to use some algebra. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve this equation for y, because remember, y is flowers, and that's what I want to know. So I'm going to subtract 12x, subtract 12x. So I've got 5y equals negative 12x plus 1200, and divide everything by 5. So I've got y equals negative 12 over 5x plus 240. And then to solve this, we are going to input 50 for x and then solve for y. So in my calculator, I'm going to do negative 12 over 5 times 50, negative 12 divided by 5 times 50. That's going to give me negative 120, and then you're going to add 240. So my answer, y equals 120 flowers. So that means if they want to make $1,200 and they sell 50 tickets, they have to sell 120 flowers. That would be your answer right here. All right, and then last one on this worksheet, it says list all the information or information that you could easily find from each form of a linear equation. So basically, we are just reviewing what do we know if we're given a certain form. The first one is standard form. Now, there's not a lot of information I can see just looking at this, but there's one thing you can easily find with standard form, and that's to find your x and y intercepts. So remember, this means to make x 0 and then make y 0. The way that the standard form equation is written, it's really easy to look at it and say, okay, I'm going to make y 0, solve for x, and it's really easy to say I'm going to make x 0, solve for y. So that's what we like to do when we're given standard form. When we are given point slope form, now don't forget the name, point slope. We have been given a point on the line, and you can just look at this equation and see that point is the x value, 9, comma, the y value, but careful, this is a plus. That means the y value had to be negative. So we already found the point just at looking at this. The other thing we can see very easily is the slope. Now the slope in this equation is this number right here, negative 1 over 2. So see how we found the information just by looking at this equation. All right, and then last thing, slope-intercept form. Now again, look at the name. We can find the slope, that's this number right here. So slope is 3/4 in this situation. And the intercept, the y-intercept, intercept is going to be this value right here, which is positive 6. So that means on the graph, I would have the point 0, 6. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Good luck on your Unit 3 test.